Now we have Luke, the DOP, Director of Photography and Cinematography on No Ordinary Man. Do you mind just introducing yourself and just telling us what you've done, what led you to this film, what attracted you to No Ordinary Man and the whole project and what it's become?
Sure. As a cinematographer, I had a few other things going on at the time, a couple of music videos, things like that. And I'd previously done a lot of short films while learning about film and being educated on that, which kind of led me into working with Rai, the producer. And then he liked my style and the way I worked, and we really got on in a previous production. So he decided to ask if I wanted to be involved in this project, and I was very happy to oblige.
Awesome.
After reading kind of the script, I got very, very engaged with it. And there was a lot of points where I felt I could really deliver image that would really suit the story and really help the narrative.
Sure. There might be some people listening that don't know what cinematography is or what the director of photography does. Obviously, you just mentioned it's kind of to do with the look. Do you mind just going a little bit deeper, just telling us what you mean by the look and the feel?
Sure.
Some people may not even get that.
So as a cinematographer, my role is to be in charge of the shots and the lighting. So it would mainly be a collaboration between me and the director to decide on what the shots are going to be. And then it's my job to kind of tweak them, look at the image that's coming out and make sure that that is up to the standard. So the director would deal with the actors, I would deal with the cameras and the lighting. And more nowadays, you'll see a DOP's role more focused towards the lighting than the actual camera work. And then that would be left to a camera operator. On this project, because it wasn't such a massive scale project, it meant that I had to do a lot of those roles. So I camera operated myself as well. And I did bits of lighting here and there just to kind of supplement the whole thing.
So when you're talking about working on a bigger production, I mentioned this with Dyer before, when you're working on a bigger production, your roles become more defined and more precise. So you kind of stick more to that role. As you said, you kind of rely more on the colouring and the tones and stuff. When you're working on a smaller production, when you have more, say, control and influence over other little parts of the area, do you feel like you can execute your vision a little bit better because you can kind of control a little bit more on the studio, or do you prefer to kind of have that tunnel vision on this is what my job is, this is what I need to do to execute it? Where do you find yourself being more comfortable?
I think the answer is yes and no. It's very nice to be able to have full control, but as a head of department, as a DP, you would have full control of that anyway. So it's just making sure that people see through your vision in the best way that they see fit. And having on board these roles like gaffers and camera operators, they may also offer you something that you can adapt into your kind of arsenal in order to make your work better. So I think I would prefer to hone in on the skill, and as you mentioned, the bigger budget it is, the more specified your role becomes. And that's my kind of preference, because it means also in terms of timing, you're not running around trying to do this and that and a bit of everything. So you'd have a load of sparks and a best boy to pre-light your scene. When you're shooting that, they'll be off pre-lighting the next scene, and it all kind of flows very smoothly. What's nice about the way that we were working in No Ordinary Man is that it was such a tight-knit team, which meant that we all got to know each other so really well. And also it offered a lot of the crew a chance to try out different things that they'd maybe not experienced before, and learn more knowledge about different roles.
Excellent. I mean, it's cinematography and being a DP is like a role not many think of when they want to get into film. I mean, what made you want to pursue that that specific job title or that kind of position? I mean, what was it about cinematography that attracted you? Was it a film that kind of set off the spark? Was it a certain DP or cinematography in a certain era or film that really influenced you? What kind of led you down this path?
Personally, for me, I think it's the job role itself, because I think everybody, especially going into like a film school,
Sure.
everybody wants to be a director.
Yeah,
like
sure.
you don't find anyone that wants to kind of sway elsewhere.
Sure.
And then slowly along the lines, they realize what each job role does,
Yeah.
and then either find their feet in something, or kind of fall into it because they end up trying it and they're good at it.
Sure.
For me, I've always wanted to be a cinematographer,
Sure.
because it really suited my kind of skill set.
Okay.
I love the creativity side of film.
Sure.
And a director is mostly communication and creativity. I think that picks up most of what they do. But with cinematography, there's a lot of tech involved, and
Sure.
I'm a really nerdy person.
Right.
I love my tech.
Sure.
So getting into cameras and all the technical
Lenses and all that
specs,
stuff, yeah.
lenses, grip dolly type things, it all really excites me. So it covers that bit of it, the technical aspects, and there's also like a bit of creativity kind of thrown into there as well, especially on the lighting side. I really love the way light kind of falls and the way you can develop it.
Creates a mood and a tone to the scene.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Could you name any influences? Is it any films, any specific DPs or cinematographers that really kind of directed you towards the role, essentially, or just influenced you to become a cinematographer?
I wouldn't like to pinpoint it on one individual in particular, to be honest.
Or several. Anyone off the top of your head that was there a film that you watched where you're like, oh my god, that looks amazing? I mean, like for me, one thing that I'd point out that really kind of got me into films was when you watch, for example, The Matrix. There's like the hue and the tone. For example, when it's in the real world, there's like that kind of blue tint. And when it's in the real world, it's got like a green tint, or it's the opposite. Sorry. I mean, was there anything that kind of that showed me that directors, that there's more to film than just directing it and someone behind a camera and somebody in an audio? There's a lot more to it. Well, is there any couple things you can point out from any film, cinema, decade, era, anything like that kind of?
Yeah. So I think it's really important as a cinematographer to kind of study like a lot of the very old films, and they're nowadays not seen as technically very advanced or very interesting, but they make the basis of and the foundation of what we can do now.
Sure.
And it's important to know those so that when you do subverge from it, you know where the line is drawn, what you can do, whether you can jump over it or not, and how to kind of play with the image to do it well. And I think a good example of this is I love using negative space in film, and it's not something that I particularly did a lot in No Ordinary Man, but it's definitely something that kind of motivated me and driven me in cinematography world. So traditionally you'd have someone looking towards the negative space of the frame,
right,
in like an interview situation, but or just getting a shot of someone from like 3/4 angle or from the side. Whereas I love the pieces where cinematographers will take the empty space and put it on the other side of the character. And this will kind of distance yourself from the character and make the tone feel slightly off. Great example of this is Mr. Robot. Just brilliant.
That was an Amazon Prime show, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the cinematography in that is just incredible, because the whole idea is to get into this guy's mind and this guy's psyche, and he's a bit off, and he doesn't really know what's real and what's not anymore. And they express this in the cinematography by making everything slightly different to what you expect, but it still looks really nice. And I think it takes a lot of skill in order to be able to do that.
Excellent. What innovations do you see that really excite you in the industry now, especially in your field? Is there anything that's happening in the, for example, the tech in the lens world and the camera world? Is there anything that really intrigued you? One thing I was talking to Rahib earlier, the director, was about, for example, the show The Mandalorian. Not sure you've seen it. Using this new tech of a full green screen that takes up most of the studio, and they kind of project it onto there. And so you don't have to be essentially on set as much anymore, and it still looks just as great. Is there anything that excites you in that kind of field that's coming out?
Yeah, I love the tech that they use in Mandalorian. As I've told you, I'm a massive tech nerd.
Sure.
I think that's absolutely incredible. What does scare me though is that more and more we're seeing the whole film world subverging into the kind of green screen studio type of thing.
Yeah.
And what really draws away from that is that you can't get you may be able to create the same type of imagery, but it takes away from the role of like a DOP.
Sure.
Because instead you're just taking the picture of a person and not the whole environment.
Sure.
And so you have less control over the overall output, and then post has a lot more control of that.
Sure.
And something like The Mandalorian, I think that's a prime example of where it's been used very well. Because I know the cameras track with the background, and you're able to get an image from what it's going to look like before it goes into post, which you wouldn't get from like a Marvel film. So
absolutely.
that's definitely the way that it should go. But I think you can't take away from the authenticity of actually being out there on set.
The art of it,
In the same way, a lot of DPs will use very vintage lenses because even nowadays you see a lot of Netflix series and shows coming out where they'll add like chromatic aberration into an image in post. Which is traditionally something that lens manufacturers have spent years and years to try and take out of their lenses because they've moved on from it. But it gives it a vintage look, which is why a lot of these Netflix DPs are adding it back in post.
To give it that feel.
Give it that feel. And you can also do that with vintage lenses, which is why DPs will use old kit. Also, the glass that they had back then was just incredible, and it's so expensive now.
It's harder to get harder. That's why they're probably more valued, because we're moving so much further away from it now. Where would you like to go? I mean, if there was one film that you wished, or not even one film, I mean, if you could have been part of one film or worked with anyone, is there anything that kind of pops in your head? Is it a film that you thought, I would have loved to be a cinematographer on that, or worked within this team? Like you mentioned with Mandalorian, would you like to someday work with Marvel Studios on a obviously there's 2 seasons of Mandalorian still to be coming out in the next 2 years. Was that something that you really want to go towards, or you kind of carry on as you are with music videos and smaller productions?
It's something I definitely wouldn't say no to. Of
course,
I think you'd have to be crazy to.
Yeah, of course.
But in the same breath, I'm at a very interesting stage of my career where I can go and do lesser roles on bigger productions, or I can continue doing these larger roles on smaller productions and have more control. And also like have that kind of title, and that will carry along and hopefully make it at some point into a place where I'm DPing something a lot bigger.
Sure.
Sorry, remind me of the question again. I feel like I just went off topic.
Just seeing where you're looking to, essentially where you see yourself going. I mean, where does No Dream Man take you from now? And going from there as well, what was it like working with the team, with such a small team through the whole pandemic? And also working with Rahib, who's a first-time director. How was it working and executing your vision, working with someone that's a first-time director? Was that difficult, or was it quite easy? Because the other guys mentioned that he was quite easy to work with because he's very open.
Yeah.
What was your experience like?
Oh, definitely. Working with Rahib was extremely easy from the get-go, because I feel like the most important thing to do with someone that you're working very closely with, especially in the head of department roles, is get to know them as people before you sit down and start talking about the business side of things.
Of course.
And actually trying to make this film. And so as we were sitting down and chatting, he's a really nice, open guy, and that fed into the way that he directed as well.
Excellent.
He was never scared to take notes from anyone. He may disagree with them, but I've worked with so many directors in the past where you might say, "Oh, I think this should be like this," especially from a camera point of view. So if you take this shot slightly over here, it's going to look a bit better, and it will work better. A lot of directors will just shoot that down and be like, "No, this is how it's going." Whereas Rahib is very open to like accept ideas.
More collaborative than
Yeah, definitely. And it may be a case of like he just won't like it, but a lot of the time I would offer him something up, like a type of image, and be like, "How about this? What if we do this to it? What if we put this light here?" And he'd say, "That's brilliant. I love that." And working with the team, it was a stressful experience in the pandemic. Because there's so many different things that we had to kind of work around. And I think in a lot of occasions, it meant that we couldn't get precisely what we had originally planned out of it. But I think the end result is definitely enough. And I think it will definitely impress despite all of that.
So one discussion I've had with the guys that have been there, or that I've interviewed already, is No Ordinary Man. Some can see it becoming a feature. Some can see it being a TV series. Where do you feel like it's could work better as?
Personally, I would see it as a type of gritty drama TV series. And I think it would work very well episodically, maybe a more long format episodic nature, like a 45-minute type of thing per episode. But I know Rahib in particular has ideas and plans for a feature, and I don't really think it's on anyone else to be able to say where it's going to develop from, because as his idea, he's the only one that kind of can write that script and make it happen. So yeah, I guess.
But you see it more as a drama, kind of expanding more of a drama, or being more of a gritty drama working.
Yeah, maybe like a gritty drama thriller type TV style thing. I think that would work really well. I think as a short film, it's a great place to kind of show it off as almost a pilot for something like that as well. So it kind of leads into it quite well.
Excellent. Oh, thank you for joining us today. Would you like to let the guys know where they can find you, how they can get in contact if they want to work with you? If you've got any social media links you want to let the guys know of?
Sure. Should I look into the camera?
Anyway, your choice, man. Yeah, you go to the camera.
Cool. You can find me at lensluke.com. My Instagram handle is lensluke. Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. Thank you.